The medical center on Station Concordia smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Zixtal walked through the sliding doors, with his chest puffed out, his purple scales gleaming under the bright lights. Behind him, 2 other students followed. Kvalesh was a tall Threnody with 4 arms and silver skin. Shar was a Velkari, covered in thick fur that changed colors with her mood. "I don't see why we need these examinations," Zixtal complained. His species, the Kravik, were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. Kvalesh nodded his large head. "My father says humans are weak. They can't even breathe half the atmospheres in the galaxy without masks." A soft voice interrupted them. "Good morning. You must be the new students." They turned to see a human woman standing in the doorway. She was shorter than all of them, with dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. Her face had gentle lines around her eyes, and she wore a plain, white medical uniform. A badge on her chest read, "Claire Martinez, Nurse." "Martyr." Zixtal barely looked at her. "Yes. Let's make this quick." Claire smiled and gestured to the examination room. "Of course. Please. Come in. I'm Nurse Martinez. I'll be taking care of all the students here at the academy." The room was neat and organized. Medical equipment lined the walls, most of it designed to work with different alien biologies. Claire picked up a data pad and began asking questions. How did they feel? Any injuries? Any medications? Zixtal answered with short, bored responses. He noticed that Claire moved with quiet efficiency. Her hands were steady as she checked his vital signs. For a human, she seemed competent enough. But humans were diplomats and engineers, not warriors. They were the species that talked and built things while others did the real fighting. When it was Kvalesh's turn, he sat on the examination table. His 4 arms made the process more complicated, but Claire handled it without any confusion. She had clearly worked with Threnody before. "I'll need to check your circulation," she said, reaching for his lower right arm. As she pressed her fingers against his wrist to find his pulse, Kvalesh's eyes widened. He was staring at her forearm. There, partially visible beneath her sleeve, was a long white scar. It ran from her wrist up toward her elbow, slightly raised and old. "What happened there?" Kvalesh asked, before he could stop himself. Claire glanced down at her arm. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Then the gentle smile returned. "Oh, that? Just an old accident. Nothing interesting." She pulled her sleeve down and continued the examination. But Kvalesh kept looking at the scar. He had seen scars like that before. His father had one similar on his leg. His father had gotten it during a battle, when a piece of shrapnel had torn through his armor. Cher was last. The Velkari student sat quietly as Claire checked her over. Unlike the others, Cher was observant. She watched how Claire moved around the room. The nurse's steps were light and balanced. When she reached for instruments, her movements were precise. There was no wasted motion. "All of you are perfectly healthy," Claire announced, making notes on her data pad. "But if you ever need anything, I'm here every day. Even if it's just a small injury. Please come see me," Zixtal snorted. "I won't need to. Kravik heal fast." "I'm sure you do," Claire said without any irritation in her voice. "But everyone needs help sometimes." After they left the medical center, the 3 students walked toward their dormitory. The Galactic Youth Academy was where the children of important families came to learn. Diplomats, commanders, and leaders sent their offspring here. "That was pointless," Zixtal said. "A human nurse. What could she possibly know about warriors?" Kvalesh was quiet. He was still thinking about that scar. "Did you see her arm?" he finally asked. Zixtal shrugged. "She said it was an accident. My father has a scar like that," Kvalesh said slowly. "He got it in combat. During the Syndicate War, Shar's fur rippled from orange to thoughtful blue." "She's a nurse," Zixtal said dismissively. "Probably took some basic movement classes." Humans love their exercise routines. But that night, Kvalesh couldn't stop thinking about it. He lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. The scar had been long and clean. Not the jagged kind from an accident. It looked surgical, or like something from a blade. He activated his personal terminal and searched for information about Claire Martinez. The file was short. She had been working at the academy for 3 years. Before that, she had worked at a civilian hospital on Earth for 12 years. Her medical credentials were impressive. She had certifications in xenobiology for over 40 species, but there was nothing about her life before the hospital. The record just started 15 years ago, as if she hadn't existed before that. Kvalesh frowned. That was unusual. Most humans had complete records going back to their birth. Education, family, employment history, everything was documented. He tried searching deeper, but he hit a wall. The older records were classified. They were locked behind Terran Defense Force protocols. Why would a nurse have military classified information in her background? Kvalesh closed the terminal and tried to sleep. But the question kept nagging at him. Tomorrow, he decided, he would pay more attention to Nurse Martinez. There was something about her that didn't add up. In her small office attached to the medical center, Claire finished organizing supplies for the next day. She locked the cabinets and checked that everything was in order. Before she left, she paused in front of a small mirror. She looked at her reflection. Just a middle-aged woman in a nurse's uniform. Ordinary. Forgettable. Exactly how she wanted it. Claire pulled her sleeve up and looked at the scar on her arm. She remembered the day she got it. 22 years ago, during a mission on a border station. The enemy soldier had been fast, but she had been faster. She pulled her sleeve back down and turned off the lights. That life was over. Now she healed people instead of fighting them. It was better this way. Quieter. Safer. But some scars never really faded. She walked out into the corridor and headed home. Just another face in the crowd. The combat simulation arena was the most advanced facility on Station Concordia. It could create holographic environments for training, from dense jungles to zero-gravity battlefields. Today, the students were practicing basic squad tactics in a ruined city environment. Danny Fletcher, one of the few human students, crouched behind a holographic wall with his partner Shar. They were supposed to advance to the next checkpoint without being detected by the simulation's enemy forces. On 3, Danny whispered. 1, 2. The explosion was real, not holographic. Something in the arena's power system had overloaded. The blast tore through the western wall, sending actual debris flying across the training floor. The holographic safety protocols, designed to prevent real harm, flickered and died. Danny felt something slam into his leg. He looked down and saw blood. A piece of metal debris had torn through his shin. The bone was visible through the wound. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The shock was too much. Shar had been thrown against a concrete support pillar. Her fur had turned white with pain. One of her arms was bent at a wrong angle. In the observation room, the combat instructors stared at their control panels in horror. Instructor Vex Nor, a veteran Kravik warrior, fumbled with the emergency shutdown. Instructor Halneth tried to override the lockdown on the arena doors. They had seconds, maybe minutes, before the entire power grid in that section failed. If that happened, the structural supports might collapse. Students could die. A human voice cut through the chaos on the communication channel. "This is Nurse Martinez. I'm entering the arena. Unlock the south entrance." "Negative," Vex Nor barked. "Too dangerous. Structure is unstable. People are dying in there. Open the door." There was something in her voice. Not a request. An order. Halneth's hands moved on the controls before he even thought about it. The south door hissed open. Claire ran into the arena. She had a medical bag slung over her shoulder and wore a breathing mask against the smoke. The other students saw her enter, and some of them shouted warnings about the unstable ceiling. Claire ignored them. Her eyes scanned the room with the efficiency of a tactical computer. She spotted Danny first. She crossed the distance in seconds, her feet finding safe paths through the debris without hesitation. She dropped to her knees beside Danny and immediately began working. Her hands moved with practiced speed, pressure on the wound, quick assessment, field dressing from her bag. "Stay with me, Danny," she said calmly. "You're going to be fine." Danny's vision was blurring, but he could see her face. There was no panic in her expression, only focus. "Cher is injured too," he managed to say. "I know. Hold this." She placed his hand on the pressure bandage. "Keep pressure on it." Then she was moving again. Kvalesh, who had been frozen near the entrance, watched her cross the arena floor. A piece of ceiling fell near her. She sidestepped it without breaking stride, as if she had eyes in the back of her head. When she reached Char, the Velkari was unconscious. Claire checked her breathing and pulse in seconds. She stabilized Char's broken arm with quick, efficient movements, then lifted the much larger alien onto her shoulders in a rescue carry. Kvalesh stared. Velkari were heavy, at least twice the weight of a human. But Claire carried Char like she weighed nothing. Her legs were steady, her back straight. She had done this before. Many times. Another section of ceiling groaned. Claire's head snapped up, calculating. Then she was running, still carrying Char, heading for the safe zone near the entrance. "Everyone out," she commanded. "Move now." The students scrambled. They had been standing around in shock, but Claire's voice cut through their paralysis. They ran for the exits. Claire's voice. Claire laid Cher down in the safe zone and ran back in. There was still Danny, and 3 other students who couldn't move on their own. Instructor Vex's Nor's voice came over the speakers. "Martinez, evacuate. The structure is failing." Claire grabbed another injured student, a small Threnody with a head injury, and carried him out. Then, she went back for the next one. And the next. Zixtal found himself helping, following Claire's example. She moved through the danger like it was nothing. No hesitation, no fear. Just pure, controlled action. When she finally pulled Danny to safety, the ceiling collapsed where they had been standing seconds before. Dust and smoke filled the air. Claire was covered in dirt and blood, some of it hers from small cuts. But she immediately began treating the injured students, calling out instructions to others to help her. She worked on Danny's leg with her sleeve rolled up. That's when Kvalesh saw them. More scars. Not just the one on her forearm. Her entire arm was covered with old marks. There was a circular scar near her elbow that looked like a burn. Kvalesh recognized it immediately. Plasma weapons left marks like that. His breath caught. Plasma weapons were military grade. Civilians never encountered them. You only got burned by plasma in combat. Claire finished stabilizing Danny and moved to Char. She worked for 30 minutes straight, treating injuries, coordinating with the medical team that finally arrived. Her uniform was ruined, but her hands never shook. Finally, when all the students were safe and being transported to the medical center, Claire stood up. She swayed slightly, then steadied herself. Instructor Vexnor approached her. The massive Kravik warrior looked at the small human woman with something new in his eyes. He struggled for words. That was exceptional. Claire just nodded. They're kids. Someone had to get them out. You went into an active collapse zone. Alone. They needed help. Vexnor studied her for a long moment. You move like a soldier. Claire's expression didn't change. I'm a nurse. I should get back to the medical center. The students will need monitoring. She walked away, leaving Vexnor staring after her. That night, Kvalesh sat with Zixtal and some other students in the common area. Everyone was talking about what happened. About how Nurse Martinez had saved them. Did you see how she moved? Char asked. Her arm was in a regeneration cast, but she was already recovering. She knew exactly where to step, like she had done it 1,000 times. And she carried you, Zixtal said, his voice thoughtful. You weigh at least 90 kilograms. She didn't even struggle. Kavalesh pulled up his datapad. I tried to research her again. Her file is too clean. No military service listed, but parts of her history are classified under Terran Defense Force protocols. Why would a nurse have TDF classified sections? Shar asked. Exactly, Kavalesh said. He showed them an image on his pad. Look at this. This is what a plasma burn looks like. He compared it to a sketch he had made of the scar on Claire's arm. It's identical. Body 4-4. Zixtal leaned forward. For the first time, he wasn't dismissive. You think she was in the military? I think she was in combat, Kavalesh said. Real combat. The kind that leaves those scars. They sat in silence, thinking about the gentle nurse who had smiled and checked their vital signs. The same person who had run into a collapsing building multiple times without hesitation. Who was Claire Martinez really? And what was she hiding? Kavalesh became obsessed with solving the mystery. Every time he saw Claire in the corridors or the cafeteria, he watched her. The way she moved, the way she held herself. There were small things that didn't fit with someone who had spent their whole life in hospitals. She never sat with her back to a door. She always positioned herself where she could see all the exits. When someone approached her from behind, she knew they were there before they made a sound. These weren't things nurses did. These were things soldiers did. He started keeping notes. Every scar he glimpsed, he sketched and researched. The burn on her arm matched plasma weapons used 20 years ago during the Terran Syndicate War. There were 3 small circular marks on her ribs, visible once when she reached up to get supplies from a high shelf. Those matched ballistic projectile wounds, but the most telling scar was on her neck, usually hidden by her collar. Kavalesh had only seen it once, when Claire was treating a student and had to lean forward. It was a chemical burn pattern, distinctive and unmistakable. Chemical weapons had been banned in most of the galaxy for decades. The only place they were still used was in the most brutal conflicts in the outer territories. My father has scars like these, Kavalesh told Zixtal and Shar one evening. They were in his quarters, reviewing his research. He fought in 3 major campaigns. He's a decorated commander. 1. R. 1. Zixtal looked uncomfortable. He had been raised to believe humans were weak, good only for building and talking. But everything he had seen was challenging that belief. Maybe she was a combat medic, Shar suggested. They go into battle zones. Combat medics don't get chemical weapon exposure, Kavalesh said. Those scars come from the worst kind of warfare, the kind where there are no rules. The next day, there was a special self-defense class for all students. The academy had invited a guest instructor, a retired Kravik general named Thexvar. He was a legend among the Kravik people, famous for his hand-to-hand combat skills. The general stood in the training hall, demonstrating techniques to a crowd of impressed students. His movements were sharp and powerful, the traditional Kravik fighting style. This is how you disarm an opponent with a blade, Thexvar announced. He had a student volunteer hold a training knife. The general demonstrated a complex series of moves that ended with him holding the knife and the student on the ground. The students applauded. Zixtal felt pride surge through him. This was what real warriors looked like. Very impressive, General, a soft voice said. Everyone turned. Claire had been standing at the back of the hall, apparently waiting to speak with one of the students about a medical matter. She stood there in her white uniform, looking small and out of place among all the combat training equipment. Thexvar smiled indulgently. Thank you, nurse. Do you have training in self-defense? Traden. 2. A little, Claire said. But I noticed something. May I? The general looked amused. Several students snickered. What could a human nurse teach a Kravik general about combat? Of course, Thexvar said. Please, show us. Claire walked onto the mat. She moved with that same quiet efficiency Shar had noticed before. She took the training knife from the general and handed it to the student volunteer. Try to attack me, she said gently. The student, a young Velkari, hesitated. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. Claire assured him. The student lunged forward with the knife, moving slowly to be safe. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Claire's hand moved in a blur. She redirected the knife arm, stepped inside the student's reach, and used his own momentum against him. The student flipped through the air and landed on his back with Claire kneeling beside him, the training knife in her hand. She hadn't used excessive force. She hadn't hurt him, but the movement had been absolutely perfect. The hall went silent. Claire stood up and helped the student to his feet. She turned to General HFY, and with perfect respect, said, "The technique you showed is excellent for Kravik physiology, but the weight distribution is slightly off for defending against faster opponents. If you shift your center of gravity here," she demonstrated, moving through the positions, "it works better against multiple combat styles." HFY watched her with new eyes. He tried the adjustment she suggested. His expression shifted from amusement to surprise. "You're right," he said slowly. "This is better. Where did you learn this?" Claire smiled that gentle smile. "Oh." But everyone in that room knew it was a lie. "You didn't pick up movements like that. Those were trained, drilled, perfected through countless hours of practice and real combat application. Would you care to demonstrate with me?" HFY asked. There was no mockery in his voice now, only curiosity and respect. "I'm just a nurse," Claire said. "I should let you continue with the class." She walked away, leaving a room full of stunned students and one very thoughtful Kravik general. After she left, HFY turned to his students. "That woman," he said quietly, "has killed people with her bare hands. Many people. I would stake my reputation on it." Kavalesh felt his pulse racing. A Kravik general, one of the most respected warriors in the galaxy, had just confirmed what he suspected. That evening, something else happened that deepened the mystery. Several students' parents had arrived on the station for a scheduled visitation day. Kavalesh was in the common area when he saw his own father, Commander Kavalesh Tor, walking down the corridor. With him was Claire, apparently giving him directions to the visitor center. But something was strange. His father, a commander who had led fleets in battle, was listening to Claire with complete attention. Not the polite attention you give to someone giving directions. Real attention. Respect. When they parted, his father gave Claire a small nod. It was subtle, but Kavalesh recognized it. It was the nod warriors gave to other warriors. The acknowledgement of a fellow soldier. Kavalesh approached his father. "You know her?" His father looked at him with surprise. "But you treated her differently. Like she was someone important." His father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Son, there are some people in this galaxy who have done things that can't be talked about. Things that remain classified for good reasons. If you're smart, you won't ask too many questions about people with TDF classifications in their background. But she's just a nurse." His father gave him a long look. "Is she? Or is that just what she wants to be now?" Before Kavalesh could ask more, his father changed the subject. But the message was clear. His father knew something about Claire Martinez, and whatever it was significant enough that even a decorated commander treated her with respect. Kavalesh found Zixtal and Shar later. "We need to find out the truth," he said. "My father basically confirmed she's hiding something important." Shar's fur rippled with nervous yellow. "Maybe we should leave it alone. If it's classified, there might be good reasons. Or maybe she's dangerous," Zixtal said. But he didn't sound convinced. "Though, she's never been anything but kind to us." "Exactly," Kavalesh said. "That's what bothers me. Someone with combat scars like that. Someone my father and a Kravik general recognize as dangerous, is working as a school nurse. Why?" They didn't have an answer. But they all felt the same thing. There was a story hidden behind Claire's gentle smile and careful kindness. A story written in scars and classified files. A story that involved more combat experience than their own military commanders had seen in their entire careers. The question was, would they ever learn the truth? Or would Claire Martinez remain the mysterious nurse who saved students and perfected combat techniques with equal ease? The answer came sooner than they expected, though not in any way they could have imagined. The attack came during the night shift, when most students were in their quarters. The first explosion rocked the station's docking bay at 0200 hours. By the time station security understood what was happening, armed militants had breached 3 sections. They were members of the Syndicate Remnant, the last holdouts of a terrorist organization that had nearly started a galactic war 20 years ago. Their goal was simple: take the students hostage. The children of commanders, ambassadors, and leaders were valuable leverage. Alarm sirens wailed through the corridors. Students stumbled from their beds in confusion. Teachers tried to organize evacuations, but the militants moved fast, cutting off escape routes. In the medical center, Claire was doing paperwork when the first explosion hit. She felt it through the deck plates and knew immediately what it meant. Her hand moved to her communication device. Medical center to security. What's our situation? Static. Then a panicked voice. Multiple hostiles. Armed. Military-grade weapons. We need backup. They're heading toward the student dormitories. Claire's mind was already working. The medical center was connected to the dormitory wing by a maintenance corridor. If the militants were smart, they would secure the medical center to prevent treatment of casualties. They would be here soon. She looked at the dozen students currently in the medical center. Some were overnight observation cases. Others had been working late on projects and stopped by for minor treatments. They were all staring at her with frightened eyes. Zixtal was among them, his tail bandaged from a training injury. So was Kvalesh and 3 human students, including Danny, who was still recovering from his leg injury. Everybody stay calm, Claire said. Her voice was steady. We need to secure this room. Shouldn't we run? One of the students asked. The corridors aren't safe. We stay here and defend this position. Zixtal stared at her. Defend? We're students. You're a nurse. What are we supposed to defend with? Claire was already moving. She went to a storage locker and entered a code. The lock clicked open. Inside were medical supplies, but Claire reached past them and pulled out a panel in the back wall. Behind it was a small weapons cache. 2 plasma pistols and a stun rifle. The students gasped. Why do you have weapons in the medical center? Danny asked. Emergency protocols, Claire said. She checked the weapons with practiced efficiency. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. She tossed the stun rifle to Zixtal. You've had combat training. You know how to use this. Zixtal caught it automatically. Yes, but, good. Cover the main entrance. Claire moved with purpose now. She pushed beds and equipment to create defensive positions. She showed students where to hide, how to stay low, what to do if shooting started. Kvalesh watched in amazement. This wasn't a nurse giving instructions. This was a soldier organizing a defensive position. Claire, he said quietly. Who are you really? She looked at him. For a moment, the gentle mask slipped. Her eyes were hard and cold. Warrior's eyes. Right now, I'm the person keeping you alive. Help me move this cabinet. They heard footsteps in the corridor. Multiple people, moving in formation. Military formation. Claire's entire demeanor changed. Her stance shifted. Her breathing slowed. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. Everyone behind cover. No matter what happens, stay down. Zixtal, if I give the signal, you shoot center mass. Understood? Understood, Zixtal said. His hands were shaking on the rifle. The door exploded inward. 3 militants rushed through, wearing combat armor and carrying military plasma rifles. They were Kravik, Threnody, and human. Professional soldiers turned terrorists. Everyone on the ground! The lead militant shouted. Claire was standing in the middle of the room, her hands visible. She looked small and harmless in her white uniform. The human militant pointed his weapon at her. You. On the ground. Now. Claire moved. Later, Kvalesh would struggle to describe what he saw. Claire's hand struck the human's rifle, redirecting it as it fired. The plasma bolt went into the ceiling. Her other hand hit his throat with surgical precision. The militant collapsed, choking. The Kravik militant swung his rifle toward her. Claire was already inside his reach. She used a move Kvalesh had never seen, something that used the Kravik's own weight against him. He flipped over her hip and crashed into the Threnodi militant behind him. Both militants hit the ground. Claire grabbed the Kravik's rifle as he fell, twisted it free, and fired 3 shots in less than a second. 2 hit the militants in their armor's weak points, incapacitating them. The third destroyed the door controls, sealing the entrance. The whole fight lasted 5 seconds. Claire stood there, breathing normally, holding the rifle with professional competence. She checked each militant, secured their weapons, and used medical restraints to bind them. Then she turned to the students. They were staring at her with their mouths open. "Is anyone hurt?" she asked calmly. No one answered. They were in shock. "Good. Now listen carefully. More will come. We need to hold this position until security retakes the station." She moved the unconscious militants to a corner and took up position by the destroyed door. She set up a defensive angle using overturned furniture. Her hands moved with the efficiency of long practice. This wasn't the first time she had done this. "Nurse Martinez," Kvalesh whispered. "What are you?" Two. Later, she said. "Right now, I need you all to follow instructions exactly." "Can you do that?" They nodded. For the next 40 minutes, they held the medical center. The militants tried twice more to breach the room. Each time, Claire stopped them. She used tactics that spoke of extensive combat experience. She knew when to shoot, when to wait, when to use the environment. At one point, a Kravik militant, twice her size, tried to rush her position. Claire met him head-on. The fight was brutal and efficient. She used pressure points, joint locks, and striking techniques that Kvalesh recognized from ancient military martial arts. The Kravik had strength, but Claire had skill and experience. She put him down and bound him with the others. Zixtal watched his fellow Kravik warrior, a trained soldier, lying unconscious at the feet of a human nurse. His entire worldview was crumbling. Finally, they heard new sounds in the corridor. Station security, led by Commander Kvalesh Tor, retook the medical wing. The commander burst through the maintenance entrance with a full tactical team. He stopped when he saw the scene. 5 unconscious militants, bound and disarmed. A dozen students, huddled safely behind defensive positions, and Claire Martinez, standing there with a rifle, her white uniform stained with blood and dirt. The commander looked at Claire. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, slowly, the commander saluted. It was a full military salute, the kind given to superior officers. "Colonel," he said quietly. Claire's shoulders sagged slightly. The mask was broken. There was no hiding now. "I'm not a colonel anymore," she said. Her voice was tired. "Once a colonel, always a colonel," Commander Kvalesh Tor replied. "Especially one who earned the Terran Star twice." The students looked at each other in shock. "Colonel? Terran Star?" That was the highest military honor Earth gave. Claire handed him the rifle. "The students are safe. That's what matters. Thanks to you," the commander said. "If you hadn't been here." He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what would have happened. As security teams secured the area and medics arrived to check the students, Kvalesh approached Claire. "You saved us," he said simply. Claire looked at him. The warrior coldness was fading from her eyes, replaced by her usual gentleness. But now Kvalesh understood. The gentleness wasn't weakness. It was a choice. I did what needed to be done, she said. No, Zixtal said, stepping forward. You did what only you could do. None of us could have stopped them. Claire didn't answer. She just turned to check on the other students, making sure everyone was truly safe. But everything had changed. The secret was out. And now, they would finally learn the truth about who Claire Martinez really was. The station took 2 days to recover from the attack. Security was doubled, and counselors were brought in to help students process the trauma. But all anyone wanted to talk about was Nurse Martinez and what happened in the medical center. Stories spread quickly. She had taken down 5 armed militants alone. She had protected the students without any of them getting hurt. She moved like no human anyone had ever seen. The Kravik students were especially quiet. One of their own, a trained soldier, had been defeated by a human nurse in hand-to-hand combat. On the 3rd day, the academy director, Nathan Cross, called an assembly for all students who had been in the medical center during the attack. They gathered in a small conference room. Claire sat at the front, still wearing her white uniform, looking tired. Director Cross was a tall human, with gray hair and a serious face. He had been an educator for 30 years, but he had also served in Earth's diplomatic corps during several conflicts. I've asked you all here, he began, because you deserve the truth. You've earned it after what you went through. Nurse Martinez has agreed to let me share parts of her background that are normally classified. Claire sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Claire Martinez is not just a nurse, Director Cross said. She is Colonel Claire Martinez, retired, formerly of the Terran Special Operations Group, known as Phantom Unit. The room was silent. Special Operations. Even students from non-military families knew what that meant. These were the elite soldiers, the ones sent on impossible missions. Colonel Martinez served for 25 years, Cross continued. She led operations during the Terran Syndicate War, the border conflicts, and what we call the shadow campaigns in the outer territories. Her unit specialized in hostage rescue, deep reconnaissance, and operations in hostile environments. Kavalesh looked at Claire with new understanding. The chemical burn on her neck, the plasma scars, the blade marks. Each one was a story, a mission, a battle survived. She has more confirmed combat missions than most commanders will see in their entire careers, Cross said. She earned the Terran Star of Valor twice, the Galactic Cross of Merit, medals from the Threnodi Empire, the Kravik Alliance, and the Velkari Union. She is one of the most decorated soldiers in human history. Zixtal spoke up, his voice confused. But why become a nurse? Why work at a school? Director Cross looked at Claire. Would you like to answer that? Claire was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but clear. I spent 25 years teaching people to fight, she said. I was very good at it. My unit was the best at what we did. We saved lives, yes, but we also took them. That was our job. She paused, looking at her hands. The hands that had saved Danny's leg. The same hands that had defeated armed militants days ago. After my last mission, I realized I was tired. Tired of war. Tired of death. I had spent my entire adult life in combat zones. I wanted to do something different. Something that didn't involve weapons or violence. So you became a nurse? Shar asked. I went to medical school, Claire said with a small smile. Sitting in classes with students half my age. But I learned. I wanted to use my hands to heal, instead of hurt. Why a school? Danny asked. Claire looked at him directly. Because schools are where the future is. You're all going to grow up and become leaders. Diplomats. Commanders. Maybe some of you will face the same choices I did. I wanted to be here to help you. In whatever small way I could. Kavalesh's father, Commander Kavalesh Tor, stood at the back of the room. He stepped forward now. Colonel Martinez and I never served together, he said. But I know her reputation. Every military officer in the galaxy knows about Phantom Unit. They did things that couldn't be done. They went places no one else could go. They brought people home when everyone else said it was impossible. He looked at Claire with deep respect. There was a mission. 15 years ago. The rescue of Thelios Station. Syndicate forces had taken a medical station hostage, including my sister and her children. Every military force said a rescue was impossible. The station would be destroyed before anyone could get there. The room was completely silent now. Phantom Unit went in anyway, the commander continued. Against all tactical advice. Through enemy lines that should have been impossible to penetrate. They rescued every single hostage. My sister still tells the story of the human colonel who carried her son through fire and plasma to get them to the escape ships. He looked at Claire. My family owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Claire's expression was pained. You don't owe me anything. That was my job. It was more than a job, the commander said gently. It was who you are. Director Cross spoke again. Colonel Martinez's last mission is still classified. I can't tell you what happened, but I can tell you that it ended the Syndicate remnant as an effective fighting force. Until 3 days ago, they were scattered and broken. This attack was their last attempt at relevance, and now they're finished, Claire said quietly. Every militant who attacked this station was captured or neutralized. There won't be any more attacks. Zixtal was struggling with something. Finally, he asked, do you regret it? The fighting? The violence? Louv. The fighting, Claire thought carefully before answering. I regret every life lost. I regret that war was necessary. But I don't regret serving. I did what needed to be done to protect people, just like I did 3 days ago. But you chose to stop, Kvalish said. You chose to heal instead of fight. Yes, Claire said. Because there are different kinds of strength. Fighting is one kind. But choosing peace, when you're capable of war, that's another kind, entirely. Harder, in some ways. She stood up and looked at all the students. I don't want you to see me as some kind of hero. I'm just a person who made choices. Some of them were hard. Some of them I wish I could take back. But I'm here now. And I'm your nurse. That's what matters. Will you teach us? Shar asked suddenly. Not just nursing, but what you know. How to protect ourselves. How to be strong like you. Claire smiled. It was the first real smile she had shown in days. I can teach you self-defense, basic combat medicine, how to stay calm in emergencies. But the most important thing I can teach you is that violence should always be the last option, not the first. Even though you're so good at it? Zixtal asked. Especially because I'm good at it, Claire said. I know exactly what violence costs. I've seen it up close. So I choose something different now. Over the following weeks, things slowly returned to normal. Claire went back to being the school nurse. She treated scraped knees and upset stomachs. She organized health screenings and updated medical records. But she also started teaching an optional course called Emergency Response and Basic Defense. Students from all species signed up. She taught them how to stay calm under pressure, how to treat injuries, how to protect themselves if necessary. But every lesson ended with the same message. Strength is knowing when not to fight. The alien students treated her differently now. Not with fear, but with genuine respect. They understood that her gentleness was a choice, not a weakness. That her kindness came from strength, not from inability to be dangerous. Kvalish visited her office one afternoon. He found her reorganizing medical supplies, humming softly to herself. Nurse Martinez, he said. Just Claire is fine, she said, smiling. What can I do for you? Just Claire. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you. For saving us. For showing us that humans are more than we thought. Claire set down the bandages she was holding. Humans are exactly what we've always been. We're teachers and fighters, builders and destroyers. We can be gentle or fierce, just like every other species. We're not special. I think you are, Kvalesh said quietly. Then you're learning the wrong lesson, Claire said, but her tone was kind. The point isn't that I'm special. The point is that everyone has depths you can't see. Never judge someone by their surface. The quietest person might be hiding the fiercest strength, and the fiercest warrior might dream of peace. She returned to her work, and Kvalesh left feeling like he understood something important about the universe. In her office that evening, after all the students had gone, Claire opened a locked drawer in her desk. Inside was a photograph, old and worn. It showed a group of soldiers in combat gear, standing together and smiling. They were young, confident, and alive. Phantom unit, her unit. Most of them were dead now, casualties of the wars they fought. Claire looked at their faces, remembering. Then she placed the photo back in the drawer and locked it. That was her past. Important, but finished. She had a different mission now. A quieter one, but no less important. She turned off the lights and headed home. Just another person on a busy space station. A nurse who treated students and taught them about health and safety. A warrior who chose to heal. And that, she thought, was exactly how it should be.